Now, the price action today, it is intriguing, but I still have to just reserve judgment on whether or not a kiss of the target is the high, or do we go a little bit higher. Now, if we break above 4,100 and we zoom out, guess what? Double top all-time high resistance comes into play at 48.75. The idea being is that China will continue to do stimulus to try to get their consumer spending again.
What if Bitcoin is on the verge of a massive price surge? Gareth Soloway's latest analysis reveals shocking insights that could change everything. Is Bitcoin about to break its resistance and hit $108,000, or could this be the final peak? In this video, we dive into the truth behind Bitcoin's price action and what investors need to watch out for next.
All right, so a couple other things. Those two stocks are moving. One thing on Palantir that I find fascinating is even with this news, the stock is lower on the morning session. But I just want to draw your attention to the last hour of trading on Friday. So this is where the market's closed on Palantir, right here at 4 o'clock on Friday. Look at this run up. Does that tell you something? So someone knew ahead of time they were going to get added to the NASDAQ 100. And I point this stuff out, guys. I point this stuff out because I want to call out the bad actors, right? I mean, I think one of the things that verified investing is all about is evening the playing field between retail investors and the institutional money. And there's things that I see on an intraday basis, for instance, options, right? When I talk to you guys about the scam that is options expiration, where institutions sell most of the options, probably 97% of all options to retail. And then if you notice just about by the way, we're into options X week this week, but what you'll notice is Thursday into Friday, all of a sudden magically stocks will all, like these big stocks that have a lot of options, they'll all rotate towards a key strike price. And what's going on there is that the institutions are saying, okay, where do we maximize our profit from selling these calls and puts? And they'll be like, okay, well, if we close the stock at $300, right? Let's say it's trading at 305 or 295. If we push it here, we have to spend about $3 million to push it there, or $5 million, or whatever it is, but we'll make $35 million by getting these options to expire worthless, and we keep those premiums, right? Because they're selling. When you buy an option, we're all paying a premium that if it expires worthless, whoever sold that to us makes that money. So there are these little tricks that I always am looking to expose to you guys out there, the retail public, to understand how to not only be aware of them, potentially avoid them. So for instance, one thing I'll never do is you'll never find me buying a put option or a call option on the final week of expiration with it expiring on that Friday, because you're just basically asking to put the odds of your success totally in the determination of the institution versus letting the natural market behave and do what it wants to do. So again, we have the NASDAQ up, the S&P up, Super Micro is down on the day. We have Palantir, which was up, now down slightly on being added to the NASDAQ 100. And same thing for MicroStrategy, although MicroStrategy remains up. So look at this. So Bitcoin pre-market, and listen, it's not pre-market for Bitcoin because it's 24/7, but earlier this morning or last night, my time, Bitcoin pushed up to 106,554. Now, you guys know I've been steadfast on saying this is going to 107 to 108,000. Now, it came within less than, basically within $450 of my low-end target. Is that the target? Is that the high? The answer is, and I don't want to disappoint, but we don't know for sure, right? Now, it certainly looks like you got to pull back here, but we won't know for a couple days if that's the high or if it's going to push up one more time into this level and get into this level. And even in all fairness, it could pierce this level. But the point being is that when we look at this parallel, notice how this line is zoning in right on this line as well. So these two lines are meeting together. And if I zoom out on the weekly chart, this bigger parallel from your 2017 high goes right through the two highs of 2021. Notice how it pierced here, but it connects perfectly through that high. That's how I draw that trend line, because you have to do it into that level right there as your first level. All right, then it extends out and it comes right up to that 107 to 108,000 level. So you have those two parallels, this one upsloping and this one less upsloping, and they are joining right there. Now, the price action today, it is intriguing, but I still have to just reserve judgment on whether or not a kiss of the target is the high, or do we go a little bit higher. Now, many people will argue Bitcoin is going to 150,000. I would tend to agree, but it's just a matter of time, right? So I remain a longer term bull on Bitcoin. The question is, do we just ignore the charts and go with emotion and say, hey, it could get there by the end of this year, next year, whatever? Or do we say, okay, well, let's take it one step at a time, make Bitcoin break out and confirm above this level before we jump to that conclusion of saying, oh, well, now it's going to 150, right? So I think the big difference maker is that when we trade using emotion, we tend to ignore the facts, the logic, and the probabilities, and we just say, okay, well, it's going here no matter what. I don't care. It's just that's where it's going. Versus you can still have your longer term viewpoint, but understand that resistance and support plays a role in the near term for having price hit it and pull back, or hit it and bounce off of those levels.
Bitcoin recently hit $106,554, very close to Gareth Soloway's target of $107,000 to $108,000. But is it the peak? Gareth warns that while the price is showing strong momentum, it's crucial to remain cautious. He emphasizes the importance of logic over emotion in trading and advises not to get swept up in hype. He explains that support and resistance levels play a critical role in price movements, and a pullback could be in the cards. The market may continue to push higher, but it's all about waiting for confirmation before making big moves. Gareth's approach is all about balancing long-term optimism for Bitcoin with careful attention to short-term price actions. As the market fluctuates, staying patient and strategic is key. Bitcoin's future is bright, but timing matters. Stay tuned to hear more about where the market might be headed next.
Ethereum, basically, you have your major resistance at 4,100. You can see that double top here. We came up underneath here after hitting it over here and are pulling back. This is your key support, so 3,420. As long as we hold 3,420, then it's basically 50-50. Does it break out or does it break down, all right? If we break 3,450, you then start having a cascade effect to 3,000 here, and then ultimately down here, and then this would be like the major buy level down here if it ever got back here. Now, if we break above 4,100 and we zoom out, guess what? Double top all-time high resistance comes into play at 48.75. Okay, so that's your little update on Ethereum. Gold is getting a small bounce. For those of you that have followed the analysis on gold, I've talked to you guys about how here was your wide range red candle. This was a hugely bearish signal. The bear flag formed, then the bear flag failed, and then it negated the red candle, which was a big flagpole of bearishness. China had some economic news over the weekend. Their manufacturing data was actually pretty good, but the problem is they also had retail sales data, and their retail sales showed that the consumer in China is really pulling back. And there is, again, you're seeing a little bit of pocket of positivity and then the negative of the consumer, which is slowly pulling back there. And so ultimately we are seeing China stocks are down just a little bit here pre-market. If we go, for instance, to Alibaba, which is a direct retailer in China, we can see that this is actually heading lower after closing around 87.85 on Friday. It's trading around 86. Not a huge drop, but you can see again a pullback. Now, I will say this is that this is one of my favorite chart setups. High to high to high, breaks out, retraces. Look at the bounce it got. Now you want to buy these pullbacks to these levels. So really what we're looking at is anything between 85 and 84 to me gets very interesting for a long opportunity. Oftentimes these can chop around here, but eventually they make that next big move up. The idea being is that China will continue to do stimulus to try to get their consumer spending again. Plus you add in the PMI data and some of this other stuff. And again, an underinvested Chinese market. And it's very likely we could see a big move in January and February. So believe it or not, I know it sounds weird, but I'd be almost more inclined to be short US stocks in January and February and long foreign markets. Not just China, by the way. I think there's a lot of underinvestment in a lot of other areas out there, but China certainly is one to watch. Federal Reserve this week. We have some other earnings like Micron later this week as well. Let's keep an eye on things. We know that the NASDAQ is coming into that parallel resistance level. We know that we also have the S&P, which has just hit that 6,100 level, maybe can get up to around 6,175 from now to Christmas and New Year's. But ultimately, to me, I'm seeing undercurrents, for instance, more declining issues for 10 straight days in the markets than advancing issues. These are weakening signals that are being masked by things like Broadcom's big 24% up move on Friday. This gives us an opportunity to start to be aware that there's a change occurring around this cycle date that likely will lead to significant downside starting in maybe early to mid-January, continuing for a few months. Look for another August type correction, maybe taking a little bit more time than that August one did, but nonetheless.
Gareth Soloway's insights into Bitcoin's potential price levels are eye-opening, but the key takeaway is patience. The market may seem volatile, but with proper strategy, investors can navigate these uncertain times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates on Bitcoin and market trends. Stay ahead of the curve and keep learning from the experts. Your financial future depends on it.